Somebody else tell a story.
The only other thing I've got is
Oh no.
that Pete. I remembered he'd always show up. I would always get every time I took a picture of my daughter up there. There would be an orb in it somewhere close to her, and she would always just like look up at the air or look past us and start crying. I mean, there's definitely something there. I don't know what it is. I think it's just probably magnetic resonance.
Yeah.
Well, to go back to that, I actually did a what do they call it? A investigation, a paranormal investigation there.
Oh yeah, that's right.
This was 21. Yeah, it was after the jab heard around the world. So, yeah, it was 21. And I still have the recordings, but I didn't really catch anything. But I did use an app on my phone where it allows them to talk. And I kid you not, as soon as I turned on the app, it said something about drowning.
Something about what?
Drowning, like drowning in a pool or something. That was the first word out of this app. And both my kids were in the pool at the time. So instantly...
Oh, creepy, dude.
Yeah.
Instantly, I was like,
So you just gave him...
What?
Yeah. You gave him a key to your head.
Yeah. And so I went ahead and asked a few other questions that didn't really pertain to anything, the responses.
Oh, it's all chaos.
Yeah.
When they talk, it's just babbling nonsense.
Yeah.
And, well, that's kind of what the app was doing, was just kind of babbling.
Yeah.
And so I went ahead and left the camera up there for... The camera that I have only records for 20 minutes at a time. So I did a 20-minute recording. But nothing happened. I wish I had thought about this at the time, but the AC was on. So even if something did happen, you couldn't hear it.
Yeah.
And, but the next morning, Dina and I actually stayed the night, but I didn't wake up at all. So, but the next morning, while we were cleaning the bed up and cleaning up all our stuff, I left the app on and was just asking questions and recording, and it got pretty good. Got pretty creepy.
Did it threaten you, or what'd it do?
Well, Dina antagonized the crap out of it.
What? Not Dina.
Dina antagonized the crap out of Pete. Like, she started singing 99 Beers on the Wall.
Mm-hmm.
And the app started like getting irritated. You could hear it in the app's voice. It started getting irritated at her.
It's funny.
And so
it's my job to talk nonsense.
And I'll send you the recording. But yeah.
We'll talk about, if you got the recording, we'll talk about it in the podcast. I mean, why not?
So for our listeners, there's a tremendous amount of background here.
Yeah.
To add on to this, Gary, Trevor, don't forget what you were going to say. Gary and who else blessed the place?
Yeah, it was me.
Did we bless the barn?
We went and blessed the barn. Yeah.
You both went up there and blessed it and prayed over it. Okay. And Pete stopped for a while. This is while me and Callie were living there.
Yeah.
And it stopped for a long while. And then you and Jess came over one night and got in a fight in the bottom of the barn, and Pete came back.
Oh, apologies.
He was feeding off that negative energy.
That's what they do, yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. So, Trevor, what were you going to say?
Yes.
Sorry, buddy. I derailed you.
That's
my
all
fault.
right. I do remember telling you guys, and I did this a few times. He'll actually talk to you if you leave a Bible open up there.
Yeah, he'll move the pages.
He'll move the pages.
Yeah.
Because I told him to take a picture of when they just randomly leave it up there and open it.
Me and Callie did that.
And he'll turn the pages. And, but I would like to go back. I don't know if they'll let us because of what happened. And it might be extremely disrespectful, and I don't want to disrespect anybody.
Oh, yeah.
But there's some new things that happened, and I would definitely want to ask permission before talking about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and Kevin said, well, the guy that lives there now, he said he hasn't heard anything.
Experiencing.
No. I keep asking him, but nothing, so.
Nothing. Is he a believer in any of this?
He's a churchgoer. That's about all I know.
Well, yeah, if we do go back, we'll have to try to get it out. I don't think we're gonna learn anything from it. So, yeah.
No.
We'll have to bring a pig over and be like, here you go, Pete. Sell it back to the stock man.
There is an irony in that. It might, I don't know, it might go for that.
Yeah, it might. You'd be like, hey, I remember being in one of those.
You know, come to think about it, there was that one time, Greg, Gary's brother, and I decided we wanted to cook our own goat.
Yeah, I remember that. I helped slaughter it.
Yeah, we took it and there's another barn behind the property, and we slaughtered it.
Yeah, that was weird.
It's
kind of good though. I pet a goat today, actually.
Oh,
really
yeah?
Cute. Yeah, I wanted to take one home.
Goat petting.
It wasn't bad.
Ha 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 ha. No, I did one paranormal investigation, quote unquote. Never did it again.
You think scared?
Yeah, well, then they stick around for a week, which is annoying.
Well, you gotta pray and ask. You gotta start out with a prayer. Ask.
Oh, we didn't do that.
God protect us as we go into this.
It was one of those. It was one of those sarcastic investigations. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It just crap actually happened.
Kind of like when
stopped.
Kind of like when people play with Ouija boards and they have no idea.
Yeah, it was that sort of thing. So we're going graveyarding. There's a cemetery out there in the Exeter area called Concord. And it's got a reputation, apparently. So we go out there, and there was a preacher dude that was out there with a bunch of friends, or somebody who wanted to be a preacher, I should say, because we were still in high school at the time, but he was into that. And
was his nickname Preacher?
No. I don't know whatever happened to the guy, to tell you the truth. But anyway, so
maybe he's a preacher now.
Yeah. So me and my friend Thomas, we go up there.
Sorry.
That's all right. And we go with Sabrina and Billy, a couple other friends of mine. And we meet this other group of kids. And apparently, of course, we're walking around. Nothing's happening at first. And all of a sudden, this entire group of kids just bolts out of the graveyard. One of them sprains their ankle, has to get carried out.
And they're not part of your group?
Yeah, it was two different groups. We were meeting this group. And so it was me, Billy, Thomas, and Sabrina. And we were meeting the preacher and his friends. So the preacher and his friends take off. They said they'd seen an orb. They freaked out, and they all ran.
From an orb?
An orb. Again, this was a very sarcastic expedition. So they take off. They're done for the night. We keep walking around asking questions. Of course, we got recording devices and things like that. Stuff that you play after the fact, obviously. And of course, we're not hearing anything at the time. I did hear leaves rustling to my left at one point, even though there were no leaves in the graveyard.
That's wind.
No, it wasn't wind. It was way too loud to be wind. But anyway. And then at one point, I had this very strong impulse to shush everybody. And we were all quiet for a minute. Didn't know why at the time, but we were all quiet for a minute. Then we walked towards the back of the yard, and the wind starts to pick up. And you're not experiencing anything at the moment, you know, but you get this kind of feeling like, okay, something shifted. So the wind picks up. It's really weird. Everybody's starting to get kind of on edge. And finally, it becomes too much, and we all decide to leave. You know, and we had to drag Thomas out because Thomas was very, very adamant about staying. So something had changed. Anyway, so we play back the tape. And sure enough, on the tape, it's, hey, come here. Hey, listen, come here. I mean, every few seconds. You know. And there's two really creepy parts from that tape. When I shushed everybody, I should also mention at the same time we were all smelling stuff. Like when I shushed everybody, I think I smelled chocolate. Somebody else smelled flowers. Like we were all starting to. Somebody else smelled smoke. We all started to smell different things. So this is all happening around the same time. On the tape, when I shush everybody, a voice, not whispering, a very clear voice with its own tone and everything like that, goes, "Guys, I have to say something." Of course, everybody screamed in the car when we listened to it. You know, but things didn't get menacing, though, until the very end, right before it becomes too much for us and we all start trying to leave. And you kind of had to turn the bass up to hear it. But at that point, you start to hear horse hooves in the background.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, like something's charging towards us. Needless to say, I think they got rid of the tape. They kind of, and you know.
Oh, I'm kind of hoping you'd still have it.
No, I didn't keep it. It was Sabrina's tape, but I got to keep the demon.
If you want to go hear demons,
though.
we can do that anytime.
I'm sorry?
If you want to go meet demons, we can do that anytime.
I don't.
But
they're not impressive to me. Like, there's a novelty to it when you're in high school, but when you get older and they're like slamming crap, you're like, oh, you can walk around the room and slam cabinets. So can my grandma. Good job. Like, it's not impressive anymore after a while. Yeah. And then they babble nonsense. They don't tell you anything useful anyway. Like, it's freaky and interesting when it's new.
Yeah.
But 10 years in, you're like, just let me go to bed. I don't care.
You kind of have the same attitude towards them that Screw Tape has towards them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a nuisance.
Yeah, they're annoying. Like, they're just, it's like, the word infestation is very accurate because it's just like having cockroaches. It's just...
Yeah.
I mean, but
they're a parasite. You know,
it's very interesting when it's new, but you don't get impressed with it after a while. So.
That's true.
Anywho, but I haven't went in any sort of investigation since because I like sleep.
Yeah, you know? You got to give up quite a bit to do one.
Well, it's not just that; they stick around in your house and don't let you go to bed.
Yeah,
they just stare at you all night and move crap. Or whatever it is they do. I never had things slamming cabinets and moving stuff. That was never a big thing.
Well,
for me.
those are when they actually like, because you get people who don't really believe in this kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden things are happening. I mean, they get spooked rather easily, you know.
Yeah.
And then you got people who do it just for views on social media. And so you got a mix of both worlds, fakers and not fakers. And it's a whole thing. But
so what do you think it is?
Oh, they're demons.
What do you think ghosts are?
Demons, no question. They're not grandma.
Do you think they could be grandma at one point?
Well, you hope it's grandma, but it's not.
Well, yeah, you want it to be.
Yeah. But no, they're demons, and they mimic. That's kind of why I think there's some plausibility to the idea that these aliens that everybody's seen are like actually demons, because that's what they do. They're like, they mimic other things. Yeah. You know what I mean?
So like my question is, out of this whole story, if we didn't know the story of Pete, would he exist?
Oh yeah, I think so.
You think?
Yeah, well, because it's just those. What goes on is when you have a traumatic event, or you have people fighting, like Gnosticism is a heresy, but the Gnostics did have a pretty accurate term for these things. I don't remember exactly what it was, but the bottom line was they're parasites. They feed off negative energy. That's how they do what they do. And so they do things like instigate fights. They deprive you of sleep. They play with your head and make you wonder if you're crazy or if it's an actual thing. I mean, all that negative energy that gets produced as a result of what they're doing feeds them. And, you know, but so when there's something traumatic, obviously, I mean, anything with an intellect is going to know people are going to talk about it. So they just stick around in that area. And sure enough, anxiety gets built up, memories get built up, and they feed off all that. That's my theory. But they're demons. There's no question in my mind about it. Yeah. And they're so stupid. Like, they're smart, but in a very specific way. It's like smart in the way that a dumb animal is smart.
Yeah, they have patterns.
Yeah, like a cow was very good at getting out of the fence, but you start putting grain in the trough, it's going to hop back through the fence again. Like, it has no concept of freedom. It's smart, but in a very specific, directed way. And these things are kind of like that. It's like all geared towards malice, but there's no they're very limited in what they're smart about, if that makes sense, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely think there's something about harmonic resonance, like emotionally charged events stick around, like the slamming door up there. Like that was probably because we heard it a lot. There was never any slamming cabinets per se, but that door slammed. So at some point, somebody slammed that door in a very highly emotional state, and it was probably when somebody was dying.
Yeah.
You know, and so that harmonic resonance of that door slamming is so emotionally charged that it keeps repeating itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you're right. I don't know if it's an interesting idea, because like it makes sense, because in a way that emotional trauma or that stuff that's getting put out that we can't see, it's kind of like being recorded the same way a CD would record music. You know?
Sure.
Vibrations latch on to things. There might be entities that can feed off of that. Wouldn't surprise me, but I don't know.
That was my point about it. If we didn't know the story, would Pete even try to get us to believe that he was Pete? You know what I'm saying?
The demon would be there because of the lore, but it might not show up as Pete directly.
Right, but if we didn't know the story, if there was no lore per se, if it got buried,
well, if the event
would that demon even try that?
That's a good question. Probably not. If nobody knew about it, nobody talked about it, I'd say. Probably leave.
So it's just like a fear-based operating system.
Yeah, well, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, you get aware of it, and then it just comes back, and it's a feedback loop.
That's super interesting.
Yeah. But no, I'm convinced that it's just, they're all demons. And I've seen people, like I remember one time we saw an orb around Demi, and it was on Jess's mom's phone. And she instantly said it was Grandma. Of course, me and Jess had been in this world long enough. We were like, no, that ain't Grandma. And we blessed the house. You know? It's like, no, that ain't Grandma. That's definitely not Grandma. So, but that people just make those inferences. And it's like, what makes you think a flashing light is Grandma, guys?
Yeah, you're just saying that because it makes you feel better.
Yeah. Because the alternative is terrifying. Like, why is the demon floating around the baby? I mean, that's not a pleasant
You can't handle the truth.
Yeah, which is why I get so annoyed at atheists. They're like, oh, well, you know, you're just, assuming the supernatural because you're spooky. And I'm like, do you have any idea how comforting insanity is? I mean, that's why it took me so long to deal with my stuff, because it was comforting to think, well, if it's in my head, then I can ignore it and control it. Once you admit that Casper's watching you in the shower, you're not in a good mood. So, I mean, it's not a pleasant alternative to actually acknowledge the existence of the supernatural.
Yeah.
But you have to admit it in order to get rid of it, though.
Yep. Hey, good looking.
What you got cooking?
Trevor asked what you had cooking.
Oh, now I'm in trouble.
Nada.
That's right. We ordered out.
I just wish... One thing that does bother me, a question that I'll present to the group. Why do you... I do wonder why it is like when something bad happens, those bad things follow the family sometimes. That seems very...
generational curses.
I don't know if it's generational curses. It's just... Like, obviously, God is sovereign, and he's going to do what he thinks is right and just. It's just always irritated me that these things torment people that have already been traumatized by people. And maybe it's
job.
what they would do, because they would kick people when they're down, and maybe God has nothing to do with that, you know?
Well, it's their job, and it's what they've been trained and taught to do.
You think somebody trained the demons?
Oh, yeah. Lucifer's trained all of them.
Think so?
That's what Screw Tape Letter's all about. Is Screw Tape is training a demon, bro.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't do a good job.
Wormwood is being trained. Yeah. And if they fail, they get punished for all eternity. So that's the...
Oh, Trevor's just blood up. Okay, I thought there was 4 people on there.
Sorry, what?
Oh,
4 people.
Examining our system here.
I was just looking.
We should get her on here one day.
Yeah, I bet she's got some stories.
Yeah.
She does have some stories about Pete.
Does she?
Yeah.
Well, she should tell them.
Yeah. You want to tell some stories?
She got a minute?
Same stories.
You got a minute?
No.
Same story.
You know the stories.
Different perspective.
Yeah.
It's a different perspective.
Not right now.
All right now. Okay.
Not today. That's fine.
We'll circle back.
Ghost stories.
Yeah, you did have some good ones.
I mean, heck, Gary was a part of one of them.
Yep.
Oh.
We've talked about it.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the one where I brought it back because I'm an idiot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Apologies.
You're not an idiot.
I should have known better than to fight in that barn, though.
Right.
So.
What were you saying a minute ago? What was your question?
Oh, it's not so much a question as an observation I wanted to get you guys' feedback on. The Almighty's sovereign and just, but I do get frustrated with the fact that these things can torment people after they've already been tormented with people. I mean, I guess, they are demons, and evil is kind of what they do, and that would be an evil thing to do. Maybe the Almighty has nothing to do with it. It bothers me, that these things can go after traumatized people as much as they do.
Well, that's what they operate through is trauma. Like, if you can't learn to, like you were saying with admitting that Casper's watching you in the shower, it's the same way with like your trauma. Like, you can't get past RAPE until you forgive the RAPist. Right? It's like, that's the whole thing, is you have to learn how to transmute your trauma.
Yeah. Not easy to do.
No, not at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why I think forgiveness is so important. Because if you don't forgive,
100%.
then it just...
Like the Lord's Prayer. God, forgive us as we forgive our debtors.
Yeah.
Like, forgive us in the same way that we forgive.
Yeah.
If we don't forgive, then we don't get forgiven.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's where turn the other cheek, because sometimes you're not going to get forgiven no matter how many times you forgive.
Yeah.
And that can get rough too.
Yeah, maybe.
And to kind of answer your question, there's there's monitoring spirits for everyone. This is just kind of what I've gathered myself is everyone has a spirit assigned to them in the realm, and this thing it never engages. It will sit back and watch you in the shower, on the toilet, whatever you're doing, and wait for the opportunity when you get mad or when you have that difficult time, and then it will send in whatever spirit pertains to what you're going through. And that's why that's why when you pray and say, "In Jesus' name, get out," it's gonna get out. It's gonna leave because it has to. But if you don't keep clean and clean up, you can clean up. But if you don't keep things clean, and if you don't keep from losing it again, they're just going to come back. And sometimes they come back 7 times stronger, or there's more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so
there's a verse about that. Jesus talks about that.
Jesus talks about it. And then later on, which is why a lot of people have such a hard time with it, that's when possessions, infestations, and other things start to happen, is because people aren't staying clean. They're just going back to their old lives.
Yeah.
And things get more powerful, get stronger. And so, priest or whoever blessed the place before has to keep coming back.
Yep.
It's because this is a repeating cycle, basically.
Yep. Trauma loop or trauma cycle.
And
that's why. Oh, that's what you were asking, Gary. The generational curses.
It's a trauma loop.
Well,
it's a trauma loop.
I think trauma cycle is a better term. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the Levitical law is referring to, or the Torah is referring to with generational curses. Like, I'm really not. I don't know if it pertains to the demon thing or not. I do think trauma. What'd you call it? Trauma loops, trauma circles,
trauma cycles. Trauma loop. Either one works for me.
I think that's a better term. I think that's more accurate.
Well, as far as generational curses, that's a thing that like you or I could create a generational curse.
Oh yeah.
If we set up the right type of situation and intentionally, that's the important part, intentionally trying to make some sort of deal to better our own life.
So if we sick a demon on our kid for prosperity or something like that?
Not necessarily our own kid. We could do it to someone else. It's just like...
Because that gets into authority. Would somebody have the authority to do that to somebody else's household?
Yeah, I don't have that.
It depends on...
Yeah, that's where grooming comes in.
It depends on what the other household believes or doesn't believe, or how they're protected or not protected.
Right. If there's a strong father in the household, you ain't getting past that.
Exactly. But if the family has fallen completely apart, easy money.
Sure. But yeah, I think the generational curses is more like, say a mother she victimizes herself over a specific thing, and she has to drink Dr. Pepper, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so it'd be like she just intentionally teach her kid that over and over to make herself feel better about drinking so much fucking Dr. Pepper.
Okay, I can see that, yeah. And
so that's like a generational curse that kid would have to break after he got diabetes.
A little after the fact, I suppose.
Probably.
Yeah. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Faith, Fiction, and Folklore. If you did, we would love it if you would subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Rumble. We can also be found on X Instagram, and Facebook. And we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Thank you again very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.